Now, in my many years of researching cryptocurrencies and finding projects that stand out, like I'm not just talking about, oh, this one sounds kind of good. I'm talking about a coin that you could literally hold like Microsoft or Apple way back in the early 90s. Ones that are revolutionizing the cryptocurrency space. And obviously, you know where I'm leading with this, right? Ondo Finance is one of those such coins. It's a newbie, at least the coin's only been trading for a little while now, but it's caught the attention of many investors alike. And today, we're going to figure out how much we have to acquire at today's current prices to make us financially free, to allow us to retire from the 9 to 5 struggle and escape the matrix. Wow, what a lot of buzzwords. So first of all, to understand Ondo Finance, we have to have a look at the market because truth be told, guys, one of the most important parts of cryptocurrencies is not necessarily what it is or does, but where it's situated in the industry. Have you ever heard of the saying, a rising tide raises all ships? Well, basically, as a cryptocurrency, you're looking to be situated in narratives and industries that are going to have the most amount of money flow into them because you don't really have to be a standout project to gain high multiples. But before I continue, guys, you know the deal. Look, if you do enjoy today's video, and I know you will because I put a lot of time and work into this one, I would love if you hit the like button down below. It really does help the channel out a lot. And while you're down there, of course, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe button so you, of course, can achieve all of your crypto goals this cycle. Now, tokenization is, of course, in real-world assets, the key focus for Ondo Finance, okay? What is Ondo? Basically, it allows regular old people to have democratized access to some of the biggest funds in the world, right? Tokenizing real-world assets, and that includes things like US Treasuries, which is one of their products, where we can have 24/7 access, redemption, and minting to these treasuries. And we'll talk about one of the partners here in a second that allows that to actually happen. A very, very big name you may have obviously heard of. But tokenization market right now is about 45 billion. Now, this is actually quite large considering that the likes of AI and others are less than this. However, comparably to where we're about to see in a second, this industry is going, it is nothing but a drop in the ocean. Now, as a narrative, real-world assets tokenization, this pretty much, these two words can be bundled into one. I typically say tokenization, right? Well, real-world assets here is one of the top performing narratives so far, okay? So far with the bull run, which is an important thing to look at. People tend to neglect this, guys. When you're researching your own coins, and as we'll find here with Ondo Finance, when you're trying to find a good project, you want it to be already performing well in the bull run, but also on these recent dips, not coming down as much, okay? Not having fallen victim to the market actually coming down, and it means that possibly there could be a little bit of paper hands in the project. Now, Ondo's price sheet right here shows you that it's actually gaining. It's been nothing but going up. So going up when everything's coming down, and ultimately in a top narrative, I mean, I think you can begin to paint the picture here as well. So now what I want to do as well is address the actual market growth here, because the question we're trying to ultimately answer in this video is, how much do we need to retire? Okay, so we have to address the market size of tokenization or real-world assets in general. Now, this is a multi-trillion-dollar market. Don't take my word from it. This, of course, is an extract from an article or a report done by 21.co. We'll also look at another report here in just a second from the Boston Consulting Group, where they see the growth in 2030, that's 6 years away, going to $10 trillion, okay, which is insane. That's the bull case. Bear case, 3.5 trillion. I mean, either or, middle ground, 7 trillion is nuts. Boston Consulting Group, even more bullish. 16 trillion by 2030. Right now, about 1.5 trillion. This is globally, of course. So we got a lot of growth to still happen in this narrative. And of course, that will overlap into crypto. This chart also from 21Co exemplifies that. We can see here most of what crypto has seen so far has been pure speculation. Infrastructure, right? Building the frameworks, trialing things out, learning lessons, making mistakes, having hacks happen, this and that. Until then, the next 20, 30 years, we're going to find true applications come out. And I think, as we'll see with here, one of their partners in a second, Blackrock, yes, Blackrock is partnered with these guys essentially, right? That they are eventually going to be leading the way for other large institutions, right? Vanguard, a bit iffy on those guys, right? And others pulling into allowing these things to be tokenized on the blockchain. And the fact that Ondo Finance actually is built on the Ethereum network, I think is a very important thing, because I think Ethereum, truth be told, with all of its flaws, I believe will probably be one of the hubs of real-world assets and tokenization, because it is just highly decentralized in terms of number of nodes, and that's why BlackRock has actually built one of their funds on it. Now, the trading venues or ways in which tokenization currently exists in the crypto space is twofold. Number one is stablecoins, right? Most of the market right now is stablecoins, USDT, USDC, and so on. Pretty boring stuff ultimately, but allows us to transact in cryptocurrency. Back in the old days before this, you had to buy Bitcoin in really mysterious, weird ways. And of course, the tokenized funds themselves. Ondo Finance is number 2 on this list. Surprisingly, Centrifuge is number 1 over here. But these guys, again, focus on treasuries. But Ondo has an amazing product, which is a USDY, their own stablecoin, 5.2% APY, just like an LSD, right? Liquid staking derivative, completely liquid. You can go in there and, of course, pretty much just hold your USDY completely backed, and you'll be able to make a nice, juicy 5% APY. I mean, inflation is pretty hot right now, so that does sound quite appealing. But for some reason, it doesn't let me in here. It thinks I'm in the US. I'm definitely not in the US right now. But OUSG is one that's probably the more interesting in my personal opinion. This is the one that actually partnered with Blackrock on. It allows you to mint, redeem, and convert US short-term treasuries, which is impressive. Now, if we scroll down here, what we're able to see is a really, really, good few names, right? BlackRock, BNY Mellon, Securitize, and PwC, right? Securitize is a pretty important name in this list, but definitely these three are huge Web2 players. We can see right here, the fund manager is BlackRock. So what Ondo basically did was they partnered with BlackRock's Buildle fund, where they tokenized a whole bunch of these basically US treasuries, right? The US dollar yields on Ethereum, and then they've gone and pretty much tapped into that 24/7 liquidity to access these yields, which all happened through Securitize. That's why Securitize's name is on this list, because BlackRock actually had used them for the fund itself to then go ahead and move $95 million of what at that time was their old fund, allowing investors like you and I to tap into this new paradigm of access to, again, US treasuries, which before this was a little bit harder to get into. I mean, obviously, one of the most stable things you can possibly buy these days, nice stable yield. However, again, this is democratizing access as the whole entire world. Anyone can go in there right now. You do have to go on KYC, but that is currently a part of how crypto is with these things. There will be KYC temporarily. In the future, thanks to ZK technology, it'll allow us to identify ourselves privately and then still have access to these funds. But right now, yes, you have to KYC. There is AML laws. But again, this just allows anyone from anywhere to have access to this, which ultimately, in my opinion, is the first step. Going back to the previous diagram, we aren't at maturity yet, guys. People complain all the time, well, hey, crypto, you got to be decentralized from the get-go. You have to be fully scalable, blah, 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 blah. Guys, this isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. If you act like a sprint, you end up coming to things like Terra Luna, for example, and then people get wrecked. Okay, these things take time. That's why you have to understand that your favorite project is going to have its flaws. As long as they have a good team behind them, it's all going to work out, which, truth be told, Ondo has probably a 10 out of 10 team. Now, you guys know me, I don't like to BS here, hence the channel name, right? So I truly do think, as you'll see momentarily, this team is perfect for this type of project. Heaps of experience and all the rest of it. Now, I do want to also share probably a video you've all seen 1,000 times on YouTube here before, a little clip from the BlackRock CEO himself, Larry Fink, talk about tokenization of assets.
We believe the next step going forward will be the tokenization of financial assets. And that means every stock, every bond will have its own, basically, CUSIP. It'll be on one general ledger. Every investor, you and I, will have our own number, our own identification. We could rid ourselves of all issues around illicit activities about bonds and stocks and digital by having a tokenization. But the most importantly thing, we could customize strategies through tokenization. That is.
So, you heard it here first, okay? So Larry's basically saying is that once we can tokenize things, and you have your own identifier on the blockchain, right? Which is where a lot of these DID protocols are going, right? Decentralized identifiers essentially allows us to, again, anonymously, but also have KYC measures in place. Say, hey, Kyron, this is him. This is his history. This might be all of his information and maybe his credit score. And then, yes, via a secret little link, we're going to verify that he can go ahead and use X, Y, Z products. And then from there, you can do a whole bunch of awesome things that previously were unavailable to the masses, right? So I think given this, Ondo Finance, again, being one of the top players actually in the tokenization space right now, up here next to, VeChain. Some of these don't even really belong on this list, to be honest with you. Like ICP shouldn't be here, Maker shouldn't be here. Possibly these two definitely should be, but it's probably like top 3, top 4 in terms of tokenization, real-world asset projects. So there's a lot of legs to stand based on what Larry's saying, based on the 2 reports we saw before, right, from 21 Co. and Boston Consulting Group. I mean, the market cap potential here is insane. So we'll look at that in just a moment. Also, the investors for Ondo Finance, I think, don't really need to be spoken about too much. Obviously, in a project that's as quality as this, there had to be some foresight, right? So we've got a long list of quality investors here, all S tier, basically, apart from a couple. And the total funding amount came to $34 million. And the team is, again, super strong, right? In crypto, it's very important to have a team that's both experienced and has the connections. In life, again, a lot of you older generational folks, right? You'll know this firsthand. It's not always what you know, it's who you know. And I've got a few stories recently about a friend of mine who got into a very, very high position in an industry he had pretty much no experience in because he knew the right people. And literally it blew him away. But, you know, he could rise to the top very quickly by having those connections. And these guys both have connections and experience. Nathan, the founder and CEO over here, has worked previously in a pretty impressive job himself. Goldman Sachs, Digital Assets, Global Markets, and GS Acceleration. Also, probably more impressive over here, Justin has probably been in a higher role, but similar area of Goldman Sachs, the head of digital asset markets. So these guys know crypto pretty well and what regulatory requirements are required for a project like Ondo. And then you come to the Ondo Finance team itself and you scroll through these guys, and no matter who you pick, I just cherry picked for this video. You stumble across some pretty unique people, right, with a lot of experience. Take Katie over here, you scroll down. She was a director of business and development in Web3 for Circle, right? These guys are, again, big. Pretty much these guys created the USDC token, which is, of course, one of the biggest RWA projects in the space, okay? And also the vice president for iShares, institutional fixed income for Blackrock. That's probably where they got the bloody connection to Blackrock, okay? So this is what I'm sort of saying. Chris is probably another giant himself. This guy's worked Goldman Sachs, a whole bunch of amazing things. So again, guys, if you have a horrible team, it's, again, the adage of, you know, having a sailboat, for example, drifting off into the ocean and then end up sinking or not be able to, you know, sort of propel the sailboat because the team's inexperienced. If you have a quality team, it's going to do the job and it gets to destination pretty easily, right? Now, I do want to talk about the premise of this video, which is, you know, basically how much do we need to retire? So remember, multi-cycle is what we're looking for here. If you think that you can buy Ondo Finance today and make 100x, you're dreaming. Now, there's a chance anything could happen in the world, but you can't tell me that Ondo Finance is going to be at 120 billion market cap. I mean, sure, it could definitely happen, but we're not going to try to look at the best case. We're looking at probably the average to worst case to make sure you are safe in this industry, okay? Most people lose money in crypto. So multi-cycle compounding, we can imagine that, again, given some of these stats over here based on these two articles and these two R&D institutions, that we're going to have a few $1 trillion more than what we have currently in the market. So if we take both of these guys, get their kind of average case, 6.8 and 16 trillion, and then what we do is we take the current market dominance that Ondo Finance is comparable to the existing RWA market in crypto. Again, probably would get rid of a couple of these, so it probably would be even more, probably around 7% or so. If we then estimate that crypto will take around 10% of that total, I guess, tokenization market share, then we can expect about $680 to $1.6 trillion in the cryptocurrency market for tokenization. Therefore, we have about 23 billion to 58 billion conservative here on the lower end, I firmly do believe, in terms of the market cap size for Ondo in 2030. Now, admittedly, again, this pretty much says on the lowest end because this takes the current market percent dominance. I would say that Ondo Finance will be a lot higher than this. It is a coin that's only like a couple months old, guys. So we can't expect it to be that big so far. It's grown a lot. So in my personal opinion, this cycle, I reckon 0.6% market dominance or higher, which would put it at a pretty high market cap. So if we come down here, I would probably say a $24 Ondo token this cycle would be definitely possible. That's a 61 billion market cap if we consider all the tokens are in supply. Keep in mind the supply here, guys, is a lot of BS, right? The market cap will increase, but artificially. We're only going to see a small slither of the tokens being given to venture capitalists, which admittedly they're probably going to end up selling because even the IEO and ICO, right, the public funding rounds, these guys like you and I, retail, are around 22x themselves already. So these guys would be probably at least a 30x up, probably closer to a 50 or more x up. So they will take profits, do not get me wrong, but we're not going to experience some crazy, huge, scary unlock and then massive dump when these small VCs of their tokens. Basically, this huge unlock that happens over here that pretty much will double the entire supply later on early next year. Basically, they will pretty much double the supply early next year. I mean, guys, it will increase the market cap, but there won't be requirement of an increase in demand. Same thing with Pith. Pith literally like tripled its market cap in a single day. And so that's why I'm saying a 61 billion market cap may seem like that's how much money is required to be invested in it, but really it's artificially swollen to that size. It probably will require 2x less than that, so around $30 billion of overall investable money into the project. So if you bought a $3,000 worth of Ondo today at $1.20, okay, and long story short, if we kind of work all this math out, you guys know how I do multi-cycle compounding in 2030, again, saying that the price would stay the same, so we're pretty much doing worst case over here. We can assume that you pretty much make $141,000 if you decide to compound, right? So you take the money you made in this cycle, and with as much as you could, you bought back in Ondo, okay? So that's considering as well a huge drop in Ondo's price, still higher than today's price, and also considering selling not at the top, right? Selling at $18, not $24. And so that is pretty much 47xing in 6 years. That's unheard of in traditional finance measures, and that doesn't even include if you stake the token, okay? For the question again, let's finalize here. How many Ondo is it required to retire? Well, it depends on your age, cost of living, location, habits, and hobbies, right? Everyone's different. I, to retire, need $10 million because of how I want to live my life. You might need $100,000, right? Everyone's different. For a general rule of thumb, I'd say buying $10,000 worth today, which is about 8,000 tokens or so, conservatively over 6 years without staking, so the extra reward you could get from staking with some of their products we've spoken about over here, then I would say that's about $1.124 million going through this exact same situation with just more money on the top side. So again, I believe this is enough to retire in most cases, especially if you know how to utilize that $1.1 million to then get back into, staking or term deposits, or maybe putting it back in yields, for example, right? Treasuries. So guys, that will do today's video. I hope you have enjoyed. And if you love the research in this video, and there was a lot of it, believe you me, I would appreciate a like down below. Thank you very much. Helps the channel out, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon. Take care. Bye.